Any comments you want to make on this particular item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is really proceeding with the final phase of improvements for the courthouse. And those improvements include the tenant improvements on the first floor for our visitor center, as well as the Mineral Museum. In addition, the contractor that had previously worked on the second and third floor has been able to complete most of the work on the second floor. No, all of the third floor, about half of the second floor. And what we've done with that particular contractor, due to the lateness associated with his performance, is negotiated a termination with that contractor for that amount of the contract, and that remains. So you'll see there'll be a deductive change order to that contract. It's Kittle and Associates, or Kittle and Sons. In addition to that, in order to proceed as rapidly as possible, and we're suggesting that the board use a process that allows you to immediately move to a process of looking at a construction manager at risk to finish the final phase with a not to exceed amount of $5.6 million. And that will basically get all of the improvements complete by January of 2020. And that process really short circuits the advertising for the same process. We're going to use a construction manager at risk because as we proceed into the second floor improvements on the final phase, we're into the Dillinger courtroom and some of the other historic courtrooms that remain as certain components. And so we're looking at really a contractor who has some specialty in working in this environment, as well as some historic qualifications to finish this work. And so we're asking, they're going to ask probably a group of 5 or 6 contractors to provide construction manager risk services, which is qualification based and price combination. And we're asking that you authorize that process immediately. If our view is time is of the essence, because the sooner we can get the project completed, the sooner we can start collecting $700,000 in lease payments. We already have Visit Tucson in and occupying, and their lease payments are beginning. Well, we might finish the rest of the project and initiate those lease payments as soon as possible. So that's our recommendation to you.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from board members?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller?
I have, excuse me, several questions on this item. In your memorandum, you talk about the excavation out in front that is going on right now, and that the soils out there are very unstable, up to 8 feet deep. My question is, what contract is that being excavated under? Who's paying for that excavation, and what is the cost?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, that's under our archaeological excavation contract, and so the depth of the archaeological investigation has gone deep enough, and was our requirement to remove all of the unstable soil. So that backfill will occur with the contractor quality control such that it is then suitable for the January memorial. And the cost is about, combined with the archaeological cost, the total cost is about $200,000 and a little over.
Oh, that's all for that, all that effort going on out there is $200,000? Okay. And then the January memorial, the last rendering I saw, and this changing is requiring like a big reflecting pool. Is that still the design that's been selected, or is that changed?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the design actually shrunk the memorial to try and match the available funds, and so the functional design really remains about the same. The bids were open, and the bids that low bidder are in excess of the amount of money that's available to the January 8th foundation. The foundation has discussed that. They're meeting now to actually look at increasing the amount of donation to match the construction. And we hope to have that resolved to the board for contract award for the January 8th bid that's been received at the March 5th agenda. If foundation's unable to raise that amount of money or get that commitment by that time, we'll continue the award until the next one.
Okay, so, because right now I see we have some funding in the January memorial, about 538,000 balance in there.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, in our agreements with the January Foundation, we agreed to pay for the archaeology as well as construction management and project oversight.
So we're going to pay for the construction, managing the construction of it, and the project oversight, and the archaeology. What are we estimating that total cost to be?
About that amount.
Well, we have 200,000 for the archaeology, but the whole construction management and oversight of the project?
Is probably, my guess, a little less than that, but about 400,000. Yeah.
I'd like to see the breakdown on that. You're talking about closing out the contract for Kittle. What percentage of work have they gotten done of the original contract? This is just very highly irregular. I've never, this is kind of the only time I've ever seen something like this happen is when we canceled the contract on McGee Road, where it was partially complete and then someone had to come in and finish it. Do we know exactly what the percentage of work that he's gotten completed under that contract?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, the total contract was about $7.8 million.
Right.
And when we bid that, that contract was about $1 million under the second low bidder. And what we have developed is we know that the deducted change order will be 1.1 million and probably plus or minus a few $1,000 because we're bidding the inventory of the number of work done, the number of encumbered contracts where it's purchased materials that can be used and stockpiled into this site and used in this next construction manager of this contract. So, my guess is it's probably, I can't give you a specific percentage. What we've done is given specific work items and the quantities of work items in order to arrive at the deductive change order.
And I see that this contract, it was originally awarded for $7.3 million, and since then, the procurement director has executed 16 change orders for $445,000 that has been added to this contract. And now we're talking about putting this completely into the hands of the procurement director. The Board of Supervisors did not get any notification of this. And it's pretty clear that it is true, the procurement director has authority for $250,000 per change order, not per contract, because she went over the $250,000, and that's very concerning to me. I guess that we can have this going. It's a 6% increase in the contract amount without any consultation of the board. And then the completion date was pushed out to March 31st without any consultation with the board. So this is all very concerning. And I guess a question I had on the change orders is who initiated those change orders?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Miller, change orders are initiated by staff and the contractor typically with regard to a change conditions unforeseen in plans, and that's why it's called a change order. And so those are verified by the staff and the facilities department in the process with consultation with the procurement director.
It's concerning to me that this went on and the board was never notified, and so we're now, allowing this to be rolled into another contract, and for the procurement director to decide who she's going to award that contract to under a contract manager at risk contract with a new contract at $5.9 million. How do we know that isn't going to be increased with a whole lot of change orders? I see this getting out of control without the board oversight, and it really concerns me that, these change orders can be added and we will never have any visibility into it unless we go and access the information in the county system, and most people don't even know how to access that information. So that is a big concern to me. The other question is, why do we justify avoiding competitive bid process when back in 2017, you stated that this contract would be awarded in January of 2019, and I don't know what justifies avoiding the procurement process of competitive bidding. There's a reason those laws are in place, is to protect the taxpayers, and it just seems like every other contract that we award is now based on solicitation for qualifications. Yes, it makes it easier, but it is taking away taxpayer protections, and there's a reason those are built into the law. I am not at all comfortable with this, especially when it's put in the hands of the procurement director. I'm not saying she's doing anything wrong whatsoever. I just don't like this process, and I don't like the authority without bringing anything back to the board or notifying the board. So what we're saying now is we're going to reduce the Kittle Award down to 6.6 million, reducing it by that 1.1 million, and we're going to award another contract. I'm just wondering who that contract's going to go to for 5.9 million, and it's just seems like a very not a very good process to protect the taxpayers. And I think that we're exceeding our authority by doing this, because I can't imagine what the urgency is. I guess one thing I would like to know is, what are the contractual obligations that Pima County has to meet that will be impacted if we don't do it this way?
Mr. Huckleberry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, there was a lot of discussion by Supervisor Miller that probably requires some response. And I think the first is the issue with regard to contract change orders. And you gotta remember, the Kittle contract was a low bid contract without qualifications based. And when you're dealing with an old building, a historic building, and you then look at change orders, 6% or 7% is very low if you look at industry standards. So that's not alarming at all. I think the next issue, this is a construction manager risk contract that will be brought back to the board for award. So it's not awarded by the procurement director. The procurement director does the solicitation. So you're going to see this contract. You're going to be able to see it. We'll solicit it immediately and then probably bring it to you as soon as possible. But under this scenario, I guess Mary Jo's looking at this is to award the contract once we have the solicitation. So we'll follow that process. We would then put it on the board's agenda for ratification.
Chair, go ahead and move the item if you'd like.
I'm not done, I just have a couple more.
Since we're questioning, we really should have enough.
That's what I was going to say.
You're moving the item, but I'll second.
Supervisor Miller?
I thought we already moved it.
No.
No, we
Okay.
didn't.
Oh.
It's okay. There's no problem.
On page 14 of your memo, you talk about the fact that there's a specialty exhibit fabricator. Who is that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll get the name wrong, so let the facility management director respond.
We can get that information for our next meeting if we don't have it available now. Or actually, before that, you could send it to us all in writing, please.
And the reason I bring that up is because you talk about the fact that it's going to cost additional costs, and that there's a real necessity to have a seamless working relationship between the general contractor and the specialty exhibit fabricator. Isn't that kind of normal, standard contractual process, that you always have a seamless and good working relationship between the two a subcontractor to the general contractor. I just didn't understand how that was going to bring up additional costs.
Lisa?
Chairman Leas, Board of Supervisors, the
Please speak up, Lisa. I'm sorry, but I can barely hear you, and I know I'm hard of hearing, but
I apologize,
Please do
my
that. Thank
voice
you.
is kind of low today. The exhibitor contract is through Pima County, it's now a subcontract to the contractor. And I just can't remember the name, we're getting it right now. But there was a bid that was done, a solicitation, and they are working on designing the exhibits for both the visitor center and the Gem and Mineral Museum for both the U of A and Pima County. And so when we talk about having to coordinate, the general contractor has to coordinate not only their subcontractors, but Pima County and the U of A's subcontractor, which would be the exhibitors.
And that seems to be pretty standard practice. When you're building a building, putting in tenant improvements, all of that, that would be a standard. The general contractor isn't going to not communicate with all the individuals that are participating in this building and getting this done. I guess I didn't understand why that was in there, that it was some unusual relationship.
The only thing unusual is the fact that it's one contractor working for two entities.
Right, but it's a county-owned building, and they all end up ultimately working for Pima County, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I guess at the end of the day, I can't justify avoiding standard bidding process, and I think we're using this all too frequently now, that we are doing the solicitation for qualifications and, sole source contracting that seems to be happening more and more. And we are, putting taxpayers at risk when we're not abiding by the contractual statutes that are in the law. There's a reason they're there, and it is to protect the taxpayers. And I don't see anything in this that requires, and I haven't heard anything that is convinces me that we need to go outside the normal bidding process. Thank you.
I appreciate Supervisor Miller's questions, but in regards to change orders, I do believe we're protecting the public's interest by protecting this building and recognizing that change orders are very typical in adaptive reuses of historic structures. And so in order to make sure that we protect this building, it's probably the second most significant historical building in Pima County, with the first being Mission San Javier. It's important that we do that on behalf of the taxpayers in regard for their interests. So,
Mr. Chairman,
any other, yes,
I'd like to respond to that. The voters in Pima County voted on this in 2015 bond election, and about 66% of them said no. And this is not respecting the taxpayer wishes, and going down this path, and general fund money has been used on this project. And it's wrong, and the voters are beginning to ask the Pima County why they even bother to vote, because these projects keep moving forward without their approval.